Hello, my name is Chris Thorne, and I'm really delighted to welcome you to the third installation of the Making Work Work interview series. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, Katy Kurn. I'm so excited to share this interview with you because, as we know in this time of COVID, a lot of people have been really struggling to figure out how to make work work because it's just highlighted a lot of issues that we've already known were out there in terms of disengagement and work-life balance and pressure. And it's so important to get your internal communications right when you're trying to engage both your employees, but also if you're trying to market your business. And Katy has three fantastic perspectives. She's not only been a manager of internal communications for a large corporate client, but she's also been a team manager herself for 13 years and became known as a bit of a go-to person to turn around disengaged teams. And also, most recently, she's now a small business owner herself, and she's helping businesses of all sizes to grow their audience through engaging their communication. So Katy, welcome to Making Work Work.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Much appreciated.
Yeah. So just to tell people a little bit more about you. So Katy's been in communications for over 10 years, and she started off doing internal communications for Nationwide, and she was involved working with people at all different levels of the business, from senior level stakeholders down to people in the trenches, doing communication plans, helping with event planning for employee engagement events, doing everything from websites, social media, you name it, she's done it. She's done corporate citizenship, and she also has done volunteering as well. And that, I think, is kind of an interesting thing because Katy volunteers as part of the communications committee for the Northampton Football Club, who's just recently been promoted. So Katy, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was a very special night. So yeah, I've been working with the commercial team, volunteering there on match days for the last few years now, and it's just, I've learned a lot from them because they're a small but very mighty team, and their culture is phenomenal there from every level. So it's been a great experience being involved with the team on a voluntary basis and getting to watch the games that I love every week.
Yeah, and I know from some of the posts I've seen on social media, you said, a lot of people would have written them off, but actually, they turned it around at the last minute and they dug deep and they've got promoted.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key theme for this time with many businesses is there have been businesses that you think, they may not survive this, and what they've done is they've adapted, they've dug their heels in, they've found new ways of doing things, and they've really continued to grow. So I think it's a common theme with many businesses.
Yeah. So Katy, can you just kind of tell people a little bit about how you got to where you are today? I know we spoke yesterday and you gave me a bit of a broad brushstroke of your previous career in communications and how you got to doing what you're doing now. So how did this all come about?
Yeah, so the skipping through part of my career, the biggest thing that led me to want to be in communications and engagement was when I got my first manager's role, and that was actually within a call center environment. So for anyone that's worked within a call center, you'll know it's very high pressure, high stress, high targets. A lot of expectations on people for not always the best salary. So it was a challenging first managerial role. And I learned really, really quickly that the way to get people to achieve the things that they were capable of and that you needed them to achieve was not through bashing them and shouting at them and reminding them of where they'd fallen down. It was actually about the culture that you would create within a team, and that was where my first love became for internal comms and engagement, because I just realized the power of it. And this team that I was looking after weren't the highest performing team at all by far. And by focusing on that culture and engagement, we managed to change that rapidly.
Yes, because I remember you saying that there's a tendency sometimes to group the lowest performing people into a team. And then sort of by luck or judgment, you end up managing that team as a manager. I mean, what were some of the things that you put in place to turn this around?
So the first thing that I actually did when I was looking after a team that wasn't performing so was to actually find out, is this the job that you still want to be doing for right now? If it is,
Mm,
what will make it better for you? What is your understanding of what the overall vision, not of only the department, but also the business as a whole is? You have to do that fact finding bit at first, which I think a lot of people brush over. They go straight to results phase. And actually,
mm,
a big part of getting people on board and getting them to change and increase their performance levels is to understand where they are. You have to meet them where they are, get a
mm,
real good understanding of what they're doing, why they're doing it, what they would do differently, and then start to formulate a plan. And that helps people to feel like an individual. In a call center, it's very easy for people to feel just like another cog in a big machine, and doing it that way, having those individual conversations, gives you not only a great insight, but also helps you to trigger into what makes people tick.
mm. Yeah, and you talked about that vision, because that's so important. I mean, as I've worked in my own career in corporate change programs and coaching my clients recently, it all starts with that vision, doesn't it? Because if we don't know where we're going or why we're doing what we're doing, we're
Yeah,
not very likely to be engaged, are we? But
absolutely.
how do you do that for someone? How do you kind of get that vision in front of your team?
I mean, if you're part of a large organization, the vision pretty much will be mapped out for you at a much more senior level. But if
Mm,
you're local, then as a business owner, you need to know where you're going. You know, it's like if you don't have a vision for the future, it's like getting in your car and just driving without any end destination point. You know, where are you going?
mm,
What route are you taking? It just doesn't work. So this is what business owners should be doing, is what's the end goal, and then you work back from that. So what do we need to achieve as a team to achieve that
mm,
end vision? What are
mm,
all the different parts that people make? What contributions do we need from people? What's the manager's role in this? You know, they will be leading, but what else can they give their team to support that vision? And that then becomes what the whole team is about. If you can create that future state for people and
mm,
help them understand exactly what part they play in it, and also get them involved in the planning, they become
mm.
emotionally invested, and then they
Oh,
want to see that end result with you.
yes, I remember you were saying about this, and because when people are involved in the process and they're setting their own goals and they're saying to you out loud that they're going to do something, it holds them a bit more accountable, don't they? And just as you say, they want to achieve and they buy in to that bigger vision.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to bring them with you on that journey. You can't, it will never work the way you want it to if it's just instructional. This is what we're going to achieve.
Mm,
People, to feel accountable, have to set in their own mind what their contribution is.
yes. I mean, and what if, because on some of the previous programs that I worked on, a lot of times, although there was a vision, individual teams and people really weren't clear on that vision. And even as I've spoken to HR managers that I know that have struggled to kind of really understand that overall vision, what do you do if, as a team manager, you've really tried to get bought, to get a clear picture of this corporate vision, but you're really kind of still fumbling around in the dark. What can you do then?
Yeah, so there will be objectives and goals that are set. You might not feel that there's an overall vision, but all businesses will have some form of objectives and goals that they want to set. If by some strange chance they don't, then do that within your team. Treat your team like it's your business. You know,
Mm,
this is your team. Think of it as if you were the business owner just of that small team. What do you want the team to achieve? What does the team want to achieve? What contribution can your team make? It can be easy in a big organization to see a corporate goal, which is, say, generate X million income over the next 12 months. And you think, well, my team can't do that alone. But
mm,
actually, what are the small parts that your team can play to help support that goal? And that's then when you bring it down to a local level. It's important for teams to understand what the overarching strategy is, but it's
mm,
more important for them to know what their team's part in that overall strategy is, and that is for the line managers to do. But yeah, if there isn't anything clear from a manager's perspective, that would be my advice. Treat that team like it's your own business. You know, what would you expect them to achieve? What do you want them to achieve?
You know, and I know yesterday we were also speaking about, you know, when you have those one-to-ones, it's so important to sit down and get to really understand your people and what makes them tick, what their motivations are, and really pulling out their strengths as individuals and see how that fits into the wider team. Are there any other tips that you'd give to managers as they're having those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of organisations I've worked with would have very strict one-to-one, almost scripts or forms that need to be completed. And there is a place for having consistency. I totally get that. But
sure, yeah.
I had the most success when I would just sit down and say, tell me how your month's been.
Yeah.
And that was the first question. And that is what would dictate the rest of the conversation. Because if you go in with an agenda, it's not authentic, and the employee will know that. You have to go from a genuine place of care and wanting to understand what are the successes, what are the challenges, what are their ideas for change, how do they feel the team's doing. And you can only do that if you react to what you're being told in that very moment.
Gosh, that's so true. And I remember also you were saying that, you know, you as a manager, you need to be open to feedback as well, you know, to kind of hearing, you know, the other side of the story really. And sometimes listening to employees say things about, you know, how they're interacting with you that you might not feel comfortable with.
Absolutely. That was something, if I'm honest, I did struggle with a little at first, because I knew I had such good intentions, but sometimes it doesn't quite hit the mark for some people. And they say, for example, recognition. I would love to get somebody to stand up in the team and say, well done. And there was one person, and she sat with me in her one-to-one and said, Katy, I am mortified when you do that in front of everybody. I really don't like it. I would rather you just came up to me and said thank you and well done. I don't want a fuss making. And I learned again very quickly that you just cannot go in with this blanket approach, because what engages one person won't engage the next person. So you have to get to know your people and understand what they like, what they don't like, and lead them through in a way that they will respond to.
So you're really meeting people where they are, it sounds like, and really putting, because there's a lot of psychology and some sort of neuroscience, I think, behind this as well, in terms of really understanding what makes people tick. And as you say, some people would feel really embarrassed at being recognized in front of the team, whereas other people would just lap it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to form individual relationships with each of your team. And, you know, if you think of it like relationships in a personal sense, you may have a partner, and how you interact with them, the conversations you have, will not be the same with the next partner that you have. They will change depending on both of your personalities and what you are aiming to achieve as a couple. And the same can be said with the professional relationships within a team. No two relationships within a team will be the same. So you have to adapt, and you have to get to know the people, and respond accordingly.
I mean, and what sort of difference did you make with these teams? Because I think we were talking about, you know, the level of productivity and difference that this can make in terms of a business is huge.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely massive. You know, when I first started, communications and engagement work was very much seen as kind of a fluffy area, but actually through living it and making it work, our team transformed their performance by 100%. Sometimes more than that. And I went on to replicate that in team after team after team. And since leaving, in the businesses I work with, this is a statistical fact that's been well researched, that if you invest authentically in the right engagement and communication of people, you can quite literally double your profit. You can double your income. And
That,
it's something that a lot of businesses haven't tapped into yet, but it is extremely powerful to have that in your tool bag.
gosh, I mean, and who wouldn't want to double their profits? I mean, really, because and you're right.
Exactly.
There's so many statistics. When I used to work in change programs, there was a statistic that 75% of these programs would fail because, and communication was cited as one of the key factors in terms of bringing people on board with change and making them feel part of it and getting the buy-in. And it's so critical. Tell me a little bit about, as you worked in internal communications, what sort of tips and hints would you give people in terms of how to make that work, especially as this has been a bit of a time of crisis for a lot of organizations?
Yeah. The biggest thing, so crisis communications are, they're a thing in and of itself. Crisis communications is almost about, even when you've got nothing to say, you say it, you say something. It's about that continuous stream of communication to let people know you're on top of things so that they can feel calm in the crisis. But actually, when you're talking about, I'd call them day-to-day communications, the biggest thing to remember is have a plan. Have a plan, and this plan there should be one encompassing overarching plan, and into that should feed your marketing communications, your employee communications, your project communications, because the last thing you want to do is have a week where employees in certain audience demographics receive 250 emails and the next week they receive nothing. The most effective communications work in businesses is where it's planned, and different projects, different business areas work together to make sure that they're coordinated in what messaging is going out when.
And I suppose it must be very important as well to be sure that you're being consistent in those messages, that what you're saying in one part of the business, you're saying in other parts. Because I think we were speaking earlier about an example where they were, on the one hand, they're letting people go, and the other hand, they're doing a bonus. Like,
yeah. And unfortunately, this is all too common where, you will, especially in these kind of times, you will see a business and they will announce redundancies to the media and to one part of the organization, and the other part of the organization is hearing that they've smashed their targets and are achieving bonuses.
Wow.
And it's purely because those two groups aren't linked up, and it doesn't have the outcome that you want with any of the audiences, because the people receiving the bonuses start to feel, it's a concept called survivor guilt, where they know that they're staying, and they also then feel doubly guilty because they're receiving a bonus. So their engagement levels start to dip. It sounds so simple to just plan your communications. It can be challenging though, with everybody going off at a tangent, but that's why it's so important to have somebody at the helm who is responsible for the management of the overarching comms plan.
And I suppose as well, it's the attitude that comes across in that communication, isn't it? Because we've heard notorious stories of companies that have had to furlough people or let them go, and they've just done it via email or text. It's been extremely impersonal, and people will remember how you treat them during times like these.
They absolutely will, and I think that is a real issue that businesses will face over the next 12 months, because employees will vote with their feet. And I think once things start to calm down a little, those employees that haven't felt embraced, cared for, looked after, they will go. The first opportunity they get, they will go. I'm hearing about it even now when redundancies are creeping in. People are still looking for new jobs because they have not liked the way that things have happened through this crisis. But it is a balancing act, because there are managers that are feeling the strain from above them. And so, it really does start from the top, the very top, and has to then filter down. You can't really expect managers to be going out alone if they don't feel supported. So it's like this ripple effect. What you create at the top should then filter down all the way through the organization.
That's such good advice, isn't it? And it seems such common sense, isn't it? But how often do you see that it doesn't happen?
Yeah. I think the good thing through this, though, is that we were talking earlier about, you know, with Zoom calls, and you see in people's houses, you see their kids walking around, and I think it has brought that human element back to business a little bit. So I'm hopeful that a lot of businesses will start to adapt, but they just might need some help in getting there.
Yeah, and I know we were speaking as well about, you know, how the importance. I know it seems to be a common theme through our interview, really, in terms of meeting people's needs where they are. So whether it's how often you have those weekly touch points or daily touch points, even with your team members, or as a communication strategy, you know, the frequency or the, you know, or the channels that you use to roll out your communication to your audience, because some people are going to like town halls, some people aren't. Some people just want an email, some people want face to face, and it's meeting people where they are, isn't it?
Absolutely. That is truly effective communication, is when you know your audience and you know what they respond to and you know what they enjoy, and it should never become about how the communication professional wants to communicate. It should be about how the people want to be communicated with. And that involves options. You won't please everybody all of the time, but if you can get a general consensus and back it up with various alternatives, so if people don't respond well to town halls, then maybe they don't need to go, but they can catch up on the replay after, or they can read the speaker notes if they prefer to just sit and read things in their own time. You know, that it's about covering as many bases as you can, and not just assuming that because you think it's a great idea that everyone else will too.
So true, so true. And I mean, can you just tell me what are some of, like, you know, the best and worst case scenarios that you've seen as you've been in communications? You know, things that have gone really well from a communications point of view, and things that are like, oh, cringeworthy.
Yeah, I think the one thing that probably, it sounds very strange, but one of the things that was an amazing success, one of the businesses I worked for, we used to release an annual employee survey, and at this time there were redundancies going on, and we took the most amount of care and attention to make sure that these communications were done in the right way. They were caring, they were compassionate, they were understanding, and that we really held people's hands through the whole process. And actually that year, for the employee engagement side of the survey, we achieved the highest scores we'd ever achieved, and that was from people that were due to be made redundant.
Wow, that's a great success story.
It was. So that was a big success. And I would say another one is when I was looking after corporate citizenship.
Yes, I was going to say, tell me more about that, because that was an interesting story. That's how you got into doing the volunteering with Northampton.
Yes. I looked after the approach for charity fundraising and volunteering, and right from the start we set ourselves a really ambitious target of what we wanted to achieve. And because of my communications and engagement side, I kind of approached it from a different angle, and we did a lot more events, a lot more communication, a lot more engaging people through the process. And, you know, in the course of a couple of years, we had over doubled the amount of money that had been raised. Wow. And we'd also over doubled the amount of volunteering hours that people were doing. And the best thing is we didn't have any budget. So we just did this purely through communications and engagement of people.
Gosh, you know, which leads me to, because we were talking about this the other, you know, what are some of the biggest myths around being able to get employees to be more engaged?
Yeah, the two biggest myths. The first one is that engagement is about throwing money at something, recognition programs, pizza days, you know, team nights out. Obviously they're all nice, but true engagement does not need a lot of money throwing at it. That is not what it's about. So that's myth number one. And I would say myth number two is going back to what I was saying earlier about engagement and communications as a fluffy, nice to have role. I've seen the power that it can give a business internally, and if you start with that power internally, it has to migrate externally, and you will see results in your business if you do the right things at the right time.
That's right, because I mean, we it's probably a different frame of reference, but you know, when you are a business, you really are still kind of selling your employees on your brand that work for
Yeah,
you, because we hear a lot about what they call the employer value proposition. What are you helping your
yeah,
employees to do or achieve in order
yeah,
to grow the business, and how are you aligning your business goals with what they want so
yeah.
that everyone
It's
wins?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the difference, engaged versus disengaged. It's the difference between an employee getting up in the morning and thinking, I really can't be bothered to go to work today, and
Mm,
calling in sick, as
yeah,
opposed to someone who gets up and thinks, no, I can't wait to get in. I'm going to do my bit.
yeah.
It's the difference between an employee taking complaint call after complaint call, spotting a
Mm,
problem with a process and
yeah.
flagging it or not flagging it. And when you start to look at all these little changes that can start to appear in a business when you've got an engaged employee versus a disengaged one, it is powerful. It is powerful stuff.
It seems like this should just be something that's common sense and part of everyday business practice, and yet for some reason it doesn't always happen. And now when we have the pandemic and people have really had to evaluate how they're managing their teams and how they're making things work, especially because a lot of work is being done remotely, and looking after that engagement and well-being. It's like, why this is just good management and communication, surely. Why is it such an issue now?
I think personally, I think there's a lot of pressure put under managers to be everything to everybody.
Mm,
And I've seen that firsthand. Managers, especially first line managers, are expected to be able to turn their hand to everything.
mm,
They have to be the disciplinarian, they have to be the
mm,
cheerleader, they have to be the coach, they have to be the communicator, they have to be everything. And I don't know necessarily that these managers are supported and trained in the right way, but also there's that element of confidence, of autonomy, of being able to feel free to manage your team and engage them in a way that they'll respond. It's
mm.
about cutting some of that red tape away and letting managers manage.
And I know we were talking the other day that, sometimes managers, there's a fear that they've got to control things and they've got to instruct and direct. And actually, you found that that's not always the best approach.
No, and it's also so hard. It's
Mm,
why would you want to have all of that on your shoulders? It's I talk about it as the megaphone versus the walkie-talkie approach. There's the managers that are just megaphones, and they're just giving orders and trying to tell people how to do things, what to do. And it's a lot of pressure for those managers to face. And whereas if you have the walkie talkie approach, you're actually
mm.
getting stuff back. And that helps
Oh,
you to lead the team forwards. Don't put it all on your own shoulders. You've got people there that are doing the job day in,
mm,
day out. They know what the challenges are, they know what the opportunities for change are. Tap into that and utilize it. Don't put it all
mm,
on your own shoulders.
mm. So, as an organization or business right now, I mean, what are some of the sort of signs that maybe I should be kind of looking out for to kind of be aware of, that might give me an idea that my people aren't as engaged as I think they are?
Yeah, so I think people may feel familiar with some signs of disengagement creeping in, but I would say the biggest one is it's a concept we call employee silence.
Mm,
And there is a culture with many managers where if they delivered a presentation, for example, in front of people, and at the end they said any questions from anybody, and there was a resounding silence, there is a theory that managers believe, okay, great, my message has landed, people know what I mean, they've got no questions. Actually, in some cases, this can be a sign of disengagement,
oh,
um,
mm,
because the minute employees switch off and don't become involved in the process,
mm.
actually shows that you're losing them.
Oh, wow.
People will think that those employees that shout, that give their feedback, that will moan about a new process, that those are the
Mm,
disengaged ones. And yes, they are on the road to that, but there's still a chance to pull them back. Them
mm,
showing their displeasure with what you're doing is actually them still showing passion for wanting the right things to happen.
yeah.
So yeah, beware of the employee silence.
Gosh, Yeah, that's a key. That's a really interesting paradigm shift, isn't it? Because I think a lot of us would have a tendency to think, well, if they're complaining, then obviously, then oh, that's when I really need to worry about things. But yeah, you're right. It's radio silence because you don't
Yeah.
know. So I mean, gosh, how do you break through that? Because I mean, if people are kind of stonewalling and they're not saying anything, how do you start to get them back on the road to engagement?
You go back to the one-to-one scenario, because the thing is, if people are on that road where they really don't care either way,
Mm,
and you still want to try and rescue that situation,
yeah.
you have to go back to the one-to-one conversations that we were talking about earlier, and it's sitting down with that person and saying, look, I noticed you didn't have anything to contribute, and I know that you're full of good ideas usually, or tell me what's going on for you. What did you really think about it? And
Mm,
it's asking from that place of really wanting to know.
yeah.
And you can then start to tap into it. And some people might say, I just didn't understand what you were saying, or
Mm,
I feel that you haven't recognized my performance over the last 6 months, so I no longer care. And it can take a few goes. Some people will clam up and won't want to talk to you for a while, but it's that keeping on, go back to them a couple of days later. Look, let's have another chat. I'm worried about you. Talk to me. What are you feeling? What's happening for you? What do you think of this, and this? And start to break it down very, very slowly.
and I mean, how do we kind of create that safe space where people feel that if they do open up and they share their concerns and their worries, that you really are going to listen and they will be heard and understood and
Yeah, I,
acknowledged.
I, I always started with a place of honesty myself. So generally,
Mm,
as a manager, I would have something communicated to me, and I would be one of those people that was like, "I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand."
mm,
And I would always lead with that and say, "Do you know, when I first heard about this, this is what I thought, X, Y, and
ah,
Z."
mm,
So you create that feeling of camaraderie, like I'm in
mm,
it with you. I didn't
mm,
understand it, or I didn't agree with it. This is how I got my head around it. And if you ask people for feedback and you ask them for their input, you ask them to open up to you, you are duty bound to do something with that to help them through it. And that is about agreeing with them. What are we going to do to move this forward? What will help you? What can I do? What can you do? You should never take full accountability on your shoulders. Again, it's about that team approach. So between you and that other person, agree who's going to do what, how are we going to move through this together? And then
mm.
obviously keeping it confidential, because I have seen situations where a manager could come out and say, right, so and so has just told me this. I
Oh,
want to know if anyone else feels that way. Obviously, that's a big no-no.
oh, and I was going to say, that's just going to destroy that trust right off the bat, aren't they? But I guess we're only human and we do those things. Yes, but it is, and I think it's, especially as a manager, it's so important that you master some really, good basic communication skills in terms of listening and giving feedback and building rapport with people. And you can build rapport with people, by using their language, reflecting back their words, and paying attention, actually being fully present in the conversation, not checking your emails or, doing something else. I've seen cases where people are doing that and you just don't feel like you're being heard. And it's just so important to check in like that so that people feel like you really are going to take action. Because I think that's
Yeah,
that's what happens a lot of times, is that people will feel as though, oh, well, I'm going to say all this stuff and yeah, so what's going to happen next? Nothing,
yeah.
nothing, nothing comes of it.
And that will be the case for many people. And your job as a manager is to prove them wrong, is to
Mm,
show them, it's what is it they say, the proof in the pudding is in the eating. You have
that's it.
to, if that's how they feel, if they feel that they're going to come out of this meeting and nothing's going to change, okay, you
Mm,
prove them wrong. You show them that
mm,
things can change and will change, and you'll do
yeah.
something about it.
Mm. Gosh, so it just sounds like you had such great work there. And then obviously there came that turning point, wasn't there? Because we were speaking about how you came to start Show Off Communications, because suddenly you found yourself in a position of being redundant and having to kind of completely reevaluate next steps. And
Yes,
tell us a little bit about that
yes.
journey, because it sounds as though that's been a real pivotal moment for you as well. And especially with COVID, we've got an interesting story to tell there as well, haven't we?
Yeah. So I kind of knew I wanted to do something completely different, and I was in the fortunate position of receiving a nice redundancy payout. And I was being offered these wonderful communication and engagement opportunities, really good money, lovely businesses, but
Mm.
nothing really struck with me. So after a lot of soul searching, I decided I wanted to set up my own business, because I knew the power of what comms and engagement could bring to a
Mm.
business. And I wanted to be able to offer that to many businesses, not just one at a time. So that was where I really found my passion and desire for running my own business. So that's where Show Off Communications was born.
And you went through a bit of an evolution, didn't you? Because you started off initially just focusing on copywriting, and then as you spoke to more and more people, you started to realize that actually, you were getting the feedback that, well, hey, hang on, there's so much more you could offer here, and then you kind of
Yeah,
pivoted.
yeah. I had all the grand dreams, and when I came to do it, I was struck with major imposter syndrome.
Wow.
And I thought, no one's going to pay me to do their communications and engagement. So I took what I thought was the easy route and just
Mm.
decided to do copywriting, helping small businesses with marketing, and just playing it safe, really. And it was through one-to-ones. When I was talking to people about my experience, they were all saying, why are you not doing this as part of your service offering? This is something massive that you can give.
Mm.
I started to evolve the business into the full communications and engagement offering, whether that's for internal or external audiences.
So what exactly do you do now with the business, just so people understand?
Yeah, so what I do is I provide, in theory, an outsourced communications department for businesses who don't have their own. So
Mm-hmm.
that could be for the solo entrepreneur, or very small businesses that need support with marketing, copywriting.
Mm.
It could be helping businesses that have employee engagement or culture issues that they want resolving.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to do, if you want people to respond to something you're doing, we can help that happen.
Oh, amazing. And I know you're very keen on, again, meeting people where they are. And when COVID hit, you had a bit of a wobble there and had to really kind of rethink,
Yes.
okay, what am I going to do next?
Yes, absolutely. When the lockdowns were first announced, I had a couple of days and I went into full on panic mode, because I was
Oh.
absorbing the energy of what I was seeing around me and on LinkedIn and in networking meetings, and seeing how everyone was anticipating their businesses going down the pan. And I had a couple of days where I thought, that's going to happen to me. Is that going to happen to me? And
Mm.
I kind of had a word with myself and thought, no, I need to, I need to prove my worth here. And I know I can offer a lot to businesses through this time. But at the same time, I knew that businesses were going to struggle with their budgets.
Mm.
So I started to develop different offerings so that we could meet people where they were in terms of budget. So we've got offers right from £20 a month through to the normal size offers. So it was something that was hugely important to me, that seeing businesses struggle is not something it was really bothered me, and I just wanted to do something to be able to help.
So it sounds like, you really dug deep there and had a word with yourself and kind of pulled yourself up by the bootstraps, and then really started to think about, what can I do to help other people, which is so important, isn't it? Because that's that's a great way to be resilient, isn't it? Is to focus on how we can help other people. But what did you do internally to kind of get yourself over? Because these are some significant hurdles for some people. Feeling, like a bit of an imposter. Is anyone gonna buy from me? And then thinking, oh gosh, is my business gonna? I mean, these are some big mental challenges. What was it internally, you think, that got you through that?
I took the attention away from me, and I thought about the people out there. That was the difference. So I sat down one day with a big piece of flip chart, and I thought, right, what do business owners need right now to get them through this? And I started to write down all the things that I thought that they would need, all the support that they would need, all the problems that they would be facing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, okay, how in my business can I support that? And that was where the change started. It was taking that focus away from me and
Mhm.
putting it back onto what can I do? What can
Mm.
how can I support? What's within my control? What's outside of my control?
Mm.
And going from there.
So what, sorry, what sort of challenges do you typically see small business owners face getting their communications and their marketing and their branding right?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that I would say is being able to stand out from the competition.
Mm.
Smaller businesses can sometimes struggle with a brand identity. So when you
Mhm.
think of the big businesses, you know, Coca-Cola, Apple, Google, they all have very distinctive brands. And with some of these businesses, you could read content and know
Mm.
immediately which business it was. Innocent Smoothie are a prime example.
Mhm.
um, and that is what small businesses need to learn to do if they're not already doing it, because that is what stands you out from the competition.
Mm.
And I think it's also where I think I add value to small businesses is helping them to bring that big company thinking into a small business. So actually big companies are really great at creating, we say again about the future vision. So if you
Ah,
buy this
yes.
project, if you buy this product, this is
Mhm.
what you're going to get from it. This is the benefit. This is how it's going to change your life. This is,
Mm.
you know, all the brilliant things it's going to bring. Sometimes small business owners can get stuck into the features of a product and the price of a
Ah.
product
Mhm.
rather than
The
creating that big
benefits.
vision. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of where we support. We help them bring in that big company thinking into small businesses.
Oh gosh, yeah, because it's all about finding your voice, isn't it? And what I think what you tend to find is that, I mean, what makes you unique as a small business owner, it will be the combination of your own unique business and life experience and that product and service offering. But it's all about the outcomes that your
Yeah.
product or service can offer to your customers, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, it's, don't be afraid to compare what you're putting out against your competitors, and think, okay, impartially, who would you buy from and why?
Mm.
And it's quite an interesting, I've done it myself with my business, you know, looking at what other people in my market are doing, and how they're communicating, and thinking, okay, what can I learn from that, and how can I continue to adapt? Because I'm a communications professional, but it doesn't mean that I stop learning. I'm always learning every single day. And I think that's a big thing, is keep going, keep learning, keep seeing what's out there in the market, see what other people are doing well, and see how you can implement that sort of thinking into your business.
Gosh, this is just great. And I mean, what can these companies do to just kind of find those distinguishing features, really? Because I think we all have a tendency to fall into that trap of comparison. I know I'm guilty of it myself. It's only natural, I think, especially when you're starting off, you're wanting to kind of make sure you're at least on an even keel with your competitors, aren't you? But then it's about having that confidence that it's your uniqueness, and your
Yes.
ability to provide. But I think also, especially with marketing, what's so important to get right is the clarity, so that people
Yeah.
are clear on what you do and how you help. Because actually, you'll find that people will tend to buy from companies that they're more clear about those outcomes than they are with perhaps another company that might even have a better product or service, but their communication is just not clear.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to speak in your target customer's language.
Mm.
Um, that's so important. You know, I've seen some coaches before, and they will advertise their services and talk about, you know, I'll help you feel unstuck, and I'll help you change your mindset so that you're living a life free of blockages. And the target audience are not walking around thinking, God, I wish someone would help me get unstuck. No, they're thinking, I woke up this morning, I feel a bit crap, and you know, I don't know what to do about it. So, you know, it's sometimes we communicate in a language that's very natural to our profession, but
Mm.
isn't what our target audience is saying. And
Mm.
once you tap into what your target audience are actually saying in their real life, they'll think
Mm.
you're speaking to them directly, and they'll think, wow, this person knows me, they understand
Mm.
what's going on in my head. So that's a big tip, is write in the style that your audience will relate to, and that tap into the problems that they have and speak to those problems.
Mm. And especially with trying to get content out there and communicate your brand and your message, I mean, that can be a real challenge for small business owners as well, can it? To sit down and create content and posting and scheduling, and I mean, what sort of things can they do to make that more manageable?
Yeah, so it's a challenge. It is a challenge, and I think many business owners that maybe have had help with copywriters or marketing professionals before are maybe having to strip back on that now. So I would say if you don't have loads of time, pick one platform that your target audience is congregating in, and do that one really, really well. Don't spread yourself too thinly. Don't feel that you have to be visible on every single platform, because if you're doing something everywhere, it's not going to be as effective as if you think, right, I'm going to pick Instagram, or I'm going to pick LinkedIn, or whatever your chosen platform is. Pick one and do it amazingly well, because then you'll start to see the benefits.
That's so true. And I mean, what sort of examples of successes have you seen with some of these small businesses doing this?
Yeah, so I'm part of a group, and it's a group of entrepreneurs, and the success stories that I've seen that are people that are using these exact techniques, and there are people that are launching new products and they are generating like 20k in one launch within 5 days, purely
Wow.
because they are focused in their messaging. They are speaking directly to their target audience. They show up every day with something. They're not shying away from talking about the benefits that they can add. It's phenomenal, the difference it can make. You've just got to show up, be clear in your messaging, speak to your target audience, and more importantly, speak to how you solve their problems in a way that they understand.
Fantastic. I mean, is there any sort of other advice that you give people right now, just generally in terms of how to get your communications right, or your engagement, or anything like that?
I think if you're doing it yourself, give yourself some planning time. It can be easy to sit and think, right, I'm going to release a blog this week, and work takes over and things take over and you never quite get round to it. And when you have to be your own marketing team, you have to get out there and do it. So personally, I always put aside Friday afternoons, because I'm not so productive on a Friday afternoon for obvious reasons. It's Friday afternoon. So I like to spend Friday afternoon, and I plan out my social content for the next week. Things can change, something might happen and I think, oh, actually I want to talk about this instead today. But if nothing else happens and I am really, really busy, I've got that content there ready to release, and you can just think about it a bit more and be a little bit more planned with it.
And that just takes so much pressure off, doesn't it? Because then you just know the next week you're just going to get it out there, it's all done. And then you can just focus on delivering, your product or service, and being more present.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Listen, and Katy, I know that you're a key networker. I mean, what would you say to people in terms of the power of networking to grow your business?
Yeah, so I think networking is extremely powerful. I tend to go into networking not with the view of selling what I do, because I think actually networking should be about the strategic connections you can make.
So true.
And I learned very early on never to assume that because there are people in the room that you don't think you could do business with, don't ever think that they couldn't refer people to you. And the more effort you put into building a really good relationship, the more they trust you. And when they're talking to their network about things and hear of an opportunity, they'll pass it on for you. 99% of my business has been generated through returning customers and referrals from my network. I very rarely do any advertising. Very rarely. That's how I've built my business. So it does work, but you have to go into networking with the right mindset, and that is to create connections, not to sell to the room.
Yes, because I know when you had this turnaround for your business in May, I mean, that was one of the key aspects of it, wasn't it? Was that you kept existing business and you got referrals and new business as well.
Yeah, Absolutely, because I kept showing up. You have to do that. I still went along to networking meetings, and I offered free sessions for people that just wanted some advice on how to
Mm,
approach crisis communications through COVID. And I'm very much a believer in you get out of life what you put into it. And
yeah.
so, if you give something, then generally you'll receive. So yeah, and it works. But you have to stay present, you have to keep going, you have to stay in the game, or else it
Mm,
will swallow you up and someone will take your place.
mm. And it sounds like you've got some good habits, setting aside time on a Friday to do your planning. I mean, are there any other good habits for success that you'd share with people?
Yeah, oh Chris, I am the most organized person on the planet, like
Oh,
annoyingly organized. So I sit and I map out my work for the whole week.
fantastic.
And then each night I actually set myself a half hour schedule for
Hmm.
each hour of the day, and I assign a task to every half an hour of the day.
Wow,
So
fantastic.
yeah, I think it's from my call center days. I love hitting targets. So for me, it's
Mm,
like this whole day of targets. But I'm also realistic with the time, because I think the worst thing you can do is think, well, I need to fit all of this into one day, so I'm only going to allocate X amount. No,
mm,
you've got to be honest with yourself. If something's going to take you 2 hours, don't put that it will take
yeah.
you half an hour, because then you're just setting yourself up to fail. Um,
Well, and it's about allowing a bit of time for contingency there as well, isn't it? Because there's
yeah,
always the inevitable interruption or something doesn't quite go according to plan. And it's like, what do you do then?
yeah, absolutely. So what I tend to do is I allocate a set amount of hours for client work,
Hmm.
and a set amount of hours which is for movable work, which might be responding to emails, or different things that don't have to happen on that day. So if anything drops in that's urgent, I have got that movement to be able to move things. So yeah, I
Mm,
do give myself a little bit of contingency with the types of tasks. I don't ever fill my day with
mm,
all urgent tasks. I
of
break it
course.
out.
Yes, because you've got to be clear on those priorities. I've heard of various systems where you have like, sort of three goals for the week and three goals for the day. And you
Yeah,
map out, which just sounds like you're doing, you sort of map out the ideal week, don't
yes,
you? So you've got it all.
absolutely.
And it's so much better. People think sometimes that if you have your schedule really regimented like that, that it means you have no freedom. But actually, by taking control of the schedule, it gives you the freedom, doesn't it? Because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it also creates a more professional outfit for your business, because if a new client comes to you and says, can you do this, rather than just saying, yep, sure, you can actually say to them, well, I can schedule it in for this day or next week, or because you will have your schedule in front of you and you will know realistically when you can deliver it for, so you can
Mm.
manage your customers' expectations as well.
Oh, that's so true. And I mean, I know you're obviously a lover of learning and obviously
Mm.
invested quite a lot in your own sort of personal development. Is there any sort of resources out there that you'd pass on to people in that respect? So any books you've read or podcasts that you particularly like?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend anybody to go and listen to podcasts, because they are one of the easiest ways of learning. I follow a guy called James Wedmore, and he is his one of his groups that I'm part of for my own learning and development. And his podcast is called Mind Your Business, and
Oh, what a great
I
title.
yeah, I listen to that when I'm cooking or when I'm walking the dog, and it's a great way to learn and develop your own skills whilst doing other stuff. I'm cleaning the house, I'll have my phone on with my earphones in, listening to podcasts. So I would say, get out there and find the podcasts that will help you
Mm,
in your business, because they're a brilliant way to learn. Really brilliant.
yeah. Oh, that's so fantastic. I mean, is there anything that, just as you've gone on these last few months that's kind of surprised you or that you've learned that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I think adapting my service offering was something that I would never have thought I would be doing a few months ago. But
Mm,
it's come out of a lovely place, because I've been so busy. I've realized that I'm kind of reaching a ceiling of people that I can work with, and that didn't sit right with me, because my overall aim was to work with as many businesses as possible. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing that surprised me is A, my resilience, and B, the way that my brain can suddenly adapt and think of new things to do and new offers, really.
Oh, fantastic. And it sounds like you're reaching that point where your business is going to probably have to scale it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, which I'm hugely proud of. But we wouldn't have the success that we do at Show Off without helping businesses to get the results. But the businesses have to be committed to achieving the results.
Yeah, and I know you're working on a new offer that's going to be coming out here in July for small to
Yes.
mid-sized business owners in terms of how they can build a more engaged culture and double their profit. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I am hugely excited about this. So yeah, we are launching, hot off the press, you're the first to hear about it. We are launching a new program in Show Off. And yeah, the premise is we will give you the tools, the techniques, the insider information to improve your culture internally, which in turn can double your profit.
Amazing.
And that is our commitment, is to teach people all of these things that we've been talking about today, plus loads more things. And yeah, if they do it right, if they do it well, if they do it consistently, they can double their profit within their business.
Wow. And you know, for what we've been saying today, I don't think these are difficult things to do. It's just pulling everything together. It's a lot of it's bringing things to your awareness, but it might be embedding some new skills and tips and techniques as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of it will be things, once you hear it, you'll think, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? And so this it's not rocket science. It's not things that will have you taken away from your day job. These are little incremental changes that you can make for the long term that will produce the results that you need in your business.
Oh gosh, and and people are so well placed to hear this information from you, because having done it, you know, having been there, done that within large corporate cultures and small businesses as well, and as a business owner herself, I mean, Katy is going to be fantastic at delivering this program, so you don't want to miss that. So how can people find out more about that, or you, if they want to get more information?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Katy Kurn,
Katy Kurn, KatyKurn. Or you can contact me through our website, which is showoffcommunications.co.uk. So any one of those things, we are currently building out. If you want to be added to our mailing list, you know, just get in touch with me and let me know, and we can keep you up to date. The program will be limited in the amount of people that we take, and there will be a process for us to assess whether you're the right business to work to get the most out of the program. So yeah, if people are interested, I would say get in quick, because the places will go really quickly.
When does it launch again?
So we're finalizing the date at the moment, but we are taking our first group on in July. So from now, so if you're interested, you've only got until the end of July to get involved.
Fantastic. Oh gosh, Katy, thank you so much for your time
and
your wisdom and your expertise. I feel as though I've had a masterclass in communications and employee engagement. I know our listeners out there are feeling the same way. So thank you again so much. And thank you again for tuning into this interview series of Making Work Work, and have a great day.